Hello, beautiful people. Today, I want to share a deeply emotional story about a daughter and her mother, and the silent sacrifices that shape our lives. My name is Sarah. I am 22 and I live with my mother Alina in a small seaside town. Our house is tiny, but it has always been safe. My mother works long hours at a garment factory. She is small but fast and never seems tired. I grew up seeing her come home late at night, her hands rough, her clothes smelling of thread. She never complained, even when the work was hard. I have always loved designing clothes. Even as a child, I would cut old sheets and stitch them into new shapes. At college, I studied design, dreaming of opening my own small studio one day. My mother listens, but she worries. "Sarah, a stable office job is better," she says often. "I want to create," I answer. "Dreams are good, but life is more than dreams," she replies. "You need a roof and money in your pocket." We argue sometimes, but I know she wants the best for me. The trouble started quietly. I noticed my mother looking tired, her hands trembling when she thought I wasn't watching. Letters arrived with no return address, and she hid them quickly. I asked once about them. She changed the subject. I assumed it was just work stress. One day she came home late, more exhausted than usual. She had a small cut on her hand from sewing, but she did not tell me. She smiled and said, "Nothing to worry about." But I felt it. Something was wrong. Weeks later, she returned with a small parcel addressed to me. I asked about it. She said it was from a distant relative. I opened it. Inside were small clothes for a baby, handmade and delicate. She had smiled when I laughed. Later, I realized she had taken extra work at night to make the money for those clothes for a friend's child. She never told me she had spent nights sewing after the factory. Life went on. I studied hard, taking part-time work to save money. I faced challenges like paying for supplies or rushing to finish projects for college deadlines. But these were small compared to what my mother carried quietly. One afternoon, a man came to the door. He introduced himself as a collector and showed papers about an old loan in my name. My mother stepped forward calmly. "It is taken care of," she said, paying him immediately from a small envelope she pulled from her coat. I stared. I had no idea she had borrowed from people like this to protect me. I began noticing more signs. She skipped meals sometimes, claiming she had eaten at the factory. She worked late into the night, humming softly while finishing clothes. She said it was nothing, just work. But I worried. Then came the news I had been waiting for. I won a prestigious design scholarship abroad. My heart leapt. I wanted to leave to follow my dream. But fear stopped me. Who would take care of my mom? She had always been so tired. I imagined leaving her alone. When I told her, she smiled. "Go, Sarah. You must not waste this opportunity." "But you," I hesitated. "I am fine. Don't worry about me. This is your future." We argued, not harshly but with tension. She insisted I go. I felt guilty, but she would not let me refuse. Packing for London was difficult. My mother helped quietly, making lists and preparing snacks. I noticed she grew thinner, paler, but she laughed and joked as always. I thought I imagined it. The train ride to London was long. I watched the fields blur past and thought about her. How could one woman work so much and never complain? I promised myself I would call every day. In London, the scholarship opened a new world. Teachers, friends, projects, exhibitions. I learned quickly. I loved it. I called my mother often. She was always cheerful, though sometimes her voice was soft, almost tired. I assumed it was just the strain of work. Then one afternoon, I received a small letter with no return address. Inside was a receipt for a loan payment, my name on it. I had never borrowed money. Panic rose in me. I called my mother immediately. "It's nothing," she said calmly. "I've handled it." "I don't understand," I whispered. "Why is there a debt in my name?" She didn't answer further. I wanted to press her, but I knew better. My mother always protected me. Months passed with ups and downs. My projects succeeded and failed in turns. I faced rejections from exhibitions and sharp disappointments, but I also had small victories, an editor praising a design, a gallery showing a piece I made. I missed home and her constant quiet support. I never realized how much she had sacrificed until the day I returned for a surprise visit. I arrived at the station early in the morning, carrying a small gift for her. The streets smelled of salt and fresh bread. The house looked the same. But when I stepped inside, the air felt different. The kitchen was quiet. A black notebook on the highest shelf caught my eye. My mother appeared behind me, moving slowly, her hands thinner than I remembered. She smiled faintly, tired but calm. I asked about the notebook. She paused, then left the room silently. My hands trembled as I opened it. Pages were filled with numbers, dates, and names. I began to understand slowly. My mother had been paying off my father's old debts quietly, borrowing money from lenders, signing everything in her own name, hiding letters, and selling her embroidery at night to cover interest. She had been working double shifts, skipping meals, sacrificing her own health to protect me. At the very end of the ledger, I found a line written carefully. "Debt cleared. Sarah must never know." I sank into a chair. Anger, sadness, and love swept over me all at once. How could she carry so much alone? How could one person sacrifice everything quietly for another? My mother returned and sat beside me. She did not scold or explain further. "Always," she said softly. "Always for you. Your life must be free." That night she grew weak. Her hands trembled, and she struggled to stand. I held her up, worried. She tried to smile. "It is nothing," she whispered. But I knew it was years of exhaustion catching up. The next morning she collapsed. I called an ambulance immediately. At the hospital, the doctors told me she had severe anemia caused by years of skipping meals and overworking herself. My chest tightened. All those nights she spent sewing and working in silence, it had brought her to the edge of collapse just to protect me. I stayed beside her every day. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and quiet beeping machines. She slept mostly, but when she woke she smiled faintly at me. I held her hand and cried softly. "Mom, I understand now. I see everything you did for me. I will make it right." She whispered, "This is all I ever wanted, your life to be free. Don't waste it." I promised her I would not. I would use my scholarship not only to follow my dream but to rebuild our lives. I helped her eat, rested her arms when she was too tired, and began planning small steps to improve our future together. Weeks later, she was stronger but not fully recovered. I realized her sacrifices were not just financial, they had cost her health, comfort, and years of life. I understood that my success had come at a price I had never imagined. As the days passed, I discovered more of her hidden struggles. Bills she had paid secretly, late-night sewing jobs she never mentioned, and even a small journal where she wrote fears about our future. Reading her words, I felt the weight of her courage, and a quiet determination grew in me to honor her life. One evening, a small fire broke out in the kitchen while she tried cooking herself a simple meal. I rushed in, panicked, and she laughed softly, embarrassed. "I wanted to eat something homemade," she said. I realized she had been doing simple things for me, not herself, even in exhaustion. I held her tightly and promised I would never let her carry these burdens alone again. Another day, a predatory lender came to the hospital, claiming unpaid interest from a loan she had quietly taken. I confronted them, furious, but my mother shook her head. "It is fine. Don't let it touch your heart," she said softly. I understood then that every moment of peace I had enjoyed had been built on her pain. Sitting beside her hospital bed one evening, I held her hand and said softly, "Mom, your sacrifices were not in vain. I will use everything I've learned and earned not just for me, but for us. I promise." She squeezed my hand gently and smiled. "That is all I ever wanted." From that day, everything changed. I began planning a small design studio back home. Together, we worked slowly to rebuild our lives. My scholarship had given me knowledge, but my mom had given me life itself. And now, finally, I could give back, honoring the quiet devotion that had made my future possible. The journey was long. I faced setbacks in designing, and our small savings were often stretched thin. But every time my mother smiled, every time I saw her strength in small, quiet gestures, I knew we would endure. The studio grew slowly, first a corner in our home, then a tiny rented space. Every stitch I made reminded me of her, every design a tribute to her silent love. Evenings became our time. She told me stories of her youth, laughed softly at old memories, and sometimes cried quietly when she thought I wasn't looking. I learned to care for her as she had always cared for me. Her sacrifices were no longer invisible. They were guiding me, shaping me. Years later, the studio finally flourished enough to hire an assistant. Clients praised the designs, and I realized that every success I had achieved was built on her foundation. Sitting beside her one night, I held her hand, feeling the warmth that had always carried me through my fears and doubts. "Mom," I whispered, "everything we have now, it is because of you. I will never forget, never waste it." She smiled faintly, squeezing my hand. "You have made it, you have lived freely, Sarah. That is all I ever wanted." Tears blurred my vision. I realized then that all the years of struggle, the nights she spent awake, the work she carried silently, it had all been for me. And now, finally, I could give back, not just in words but in actions. We sat in silence for a long time, the waves outside our window moving quietly, as if sharing our unspoken understanding. I promised myself that every stitch I sewed, every design I created would honor her. Every small success, every dream I achieved, would be a tribute to her sacrifices. Slowly, we began to rebuild our lives together. I managed the studio and she helped in small ways, arranging fabrics, testing patterns, giving advice quietly. She still grew tired easily, but her eyes shone with pride each time I showed her a new design. I no longer saw her only as my mother. I saw her as the quiet hero of my life. Even when challenges came, clients canceling orders, materials delayed, bills piling up, we faced them together. I understood now that hardship was not new to us. We had lived it quietly for years. But now, I was ready to carry it alongside her, not leave her to face it alone. One evening, after a long day at the studio, we sat by the small seaside window. The sky was painted in shades of orange and purple. She leaned against me softly. "Sarah, promise me whatever happens, you will always take care of yourself too. Don't let my life become yours," she whispered. "I promise, Mom," I said, holding her closer. "But your life will always be part of mine. You have given me everything, I will carry it proudly." For the first time in years, I saw her truly at peace. I realized that the hidden struggles, the sacrifices, the quiet nights of exhaustion, they had not been in vain. And now, we could live our lives openly together, free from the burdens she had carried alone. Every morning, I watched her prepare for the day with care, noticing the small gestures she once made quietly for me now mirrored in the way I treated her. The studio grew, our life slowly improved, but the true treasure was this: our shared understanding, the unspoken gratitude, and the love built on years of silent devotion. And in that moment I understood completely. The hidden ledger, the secret debts, the nights of work, the skipped meals, they were all part of her gift. Not money, not possessions, not recognition, but the freedom for me to dream, to live, and to honor her life. I held her hand, finally able to tell her everything I could not say before. "Mom, I love you. I will never forget what you did for me. You are my life, my strength, and my future." She closed her eyes for a moment, a faint smile touching her lips. "And you are mine, Sarah. Always mine." We sat there together, quietly watching the waves roll in, feeling the weight of the past lifted, replaced by a new life built on love, sacrifice, and unspoken devotion. From that day, everything we did, every design, every stitch, every dream was shared. Not just between mother and daughter, but between two hearts that had carried each other through the hardest of times. And I knew finally that I could never repay her, but I could live in a way that made every sacrifice, every hidden struggle meaningful. That was the true legacy of my mother, Alina, the woman who gave me life and everything beyond it. This story reminds us that true love often works quietly behind the scenes. Cherish those who give everything for you, even when they say it's nothing.